I think Speaker McCarthy sees the problems that have been caused by Democrat overspending right here domestically in the United States. We've got to take care of our own citizens. We have a debt of $31.6 trillion now. We have depleted a lot of our munitions, sending that overseas. And don't get me wrong, my heart goes out to these Ukrainians.
Of course.
A brutal dictator, Vladimir Putin, invaded them. I'll tell you, if it wasn't for Biden's weakness, I don't think Putin would have ever invaded. I can tell you, I don't believe if President Trump had been in office still, that invasion would not have taken place.
Agreed. Totally agree, Brian. Let's switch to this pipeline, because we were told back when it happened that first, by the Biden regime, it was Russia. Russia had to do it. Then you have that amazing Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who sends out the article a couple of weeks ago and says, no, it was most likely the U.S., and here's why we can prove it. And then just last week, our regime says, no. It was a Ukrainian militia group that did it, but they never asked Zelensky, they didn't have permission to do it. Now, Brian, I'm not a Navy diver. I was in the Air Force, but I know we have the technology to go down and do something like that. I'm pretty sure that Ukrainian soldiers, whatever, do not have that tech to go that deep in the ocean, plant a bomb, get out of the way, and detonate it. Sorry, I'm not buying this one.
If you're asking my opinion, I can tell you this, Dan. I was an Air Force guy myself, and Army. I was an enlisted troop in the Army and an Air Force officer. I have no idea what that is. I read that story you're talking about. It does seem to make sense. It's hard for me that we would have the boldness of that decision coming out of this Biden administration if that is true. I'm going to have to plead ignorance. I do not know.
Well, you remember what Joe said, though, Brian, and his undersecretary over at SecDef, right? Yes. They said over a year ago, when this war started, that if the war starts, the pipeline will not exist. They both said it. They're on camera and record saying it. So who took it out then?
I saw that, and absolutely it's stuck in my mind. But I'll tell you, if the Biden administration did do this, if they are responsible for it, it's probably one of the more irresponsible things that ever has been done, especially if they've allowed themselves to be caught doing it. Certainly, I'm no fan of Putin. I'm certainly no fan of the Russian aggression, and I think it was a really stupid error on the part of Germany, of their former chancellor, to ink a deal like that with Russia and become more and more dependent upon their fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And it was a stupid thing to do in the first place. But I'll tell you, it would be, I think, a very foolish decision to take out the pipeline between an ally and an adversary like Russia. But we'll see. I'm sure it's going to come out one of these days. But after seeing the withdrawal from Afghanistan under this Biden administration, the hopeless, the just absurd foreign policy decisions that are being made by this Biden administration, you know what? Nothing would surprise me.
Brian, are you for a full accounting of every penny that goes to Ukraine? And if we don't have that full accounting, can we please stop sending money? Because it appears the Biden administration is just fine with funding this war for another 18 months, because I asked my friends in the Pentagon, and I know you probably have as well, it takes 18 months to get their pilots trained for F-16s that I know we're going to eventually give them. So if we're talking 18 months for them to even fly our jets against the Russians, that's 18 more months of a war we'll be funding.
Dan, America's got to come first. That's what has to be number one. And we've already spent $76 billion. That's with a B to date on this war. Much of our munitions, javelins, stingers, a lot of munitions, a lot of equipment has gone to the Ukrainians. Again, my heart goes out to these people, and they've been very brave and standing up for themselves. But America cannot become the unlimited funding source for every international conflict, and Ukraine is not a member of NATO. I think this is a European problem, and I'm hoping that these European nations will step up to the bar if that's what they want to do.
Right. It's in their backyard. They should be putting in more equipment, more money. I know you got to run, Brian. Final question to you. Off subject. This is budget. $2 trillion bucks Biden's looking for. He says he's raising taxes, but not on anybody that makes less than 400,000, that's not the math we're seeing. Taxes are going to be raised on a lot of people with this proposal. He's out, of course, today on the campaign trail, if you will, hitting up unions, saying this is going to be good for America. I don't see how spending more money before you're cutting spending can help with inflation or my tax bill or anybody's tax bill. Final word to you, Brian.
Absolutely. If we allow him, President Biden will mismanage this country right into a deeper hole than what we're in now. We're at $31.6 trillion. His budget is nearly $6.9 trillion. We're going to probably wind up with a $1.8 trillion deficit next year alone. He keeps wanting to raise taxes. We had CBO, he gave us a briefing yesterday, Congressional Budget Office. And the Democrats have stood up to the microphone. It was amazing. They just have never seen a tax hike that they didn't like. They tried to blame this national debt on our Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that we passed under President Trump, which gave us the best economy, the biggest surge in our economic growth that we've seen in years and years. We have got to grow our way out of this hole that we have gotten ourselves in with this size of national debt, and we can't tax our way out of it. We got to cut spending, and we got to create and incentivize business, create jobs, and grow our way out of it. That's the long and short of it.
That is.